Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondent Club of Japan. My name is Pio D'Emilia. I'm moderator today. Our guest today is Madame Christine Schraner Burgener. She's the UN Special Envoy of the Secretary General on Myanmar from the UN. She's coming from a few days in Southeast Asia, not yet from Myanmar itself, but from all other countries. She's now in Japan. She met, I guess, today with the Foreign Minister Motegi, and I'm sure she will report about this too. And she has been living in Asia in the past. Actually, I just learned that she was grown up here in Japan. That's why she speaks among the other 20 languages, Japanese too, like all Swiss people, you know, they speak all languages. And she has been before posted as a Swiss ambassador in Thailand and Germany, I think. Okay. So, as everybody knows, we are now approaching the 4th month after the coup d'etat in Myanmar. There have been a lot of efforts, diplomatically, officially, and under the table, so to say. But the situation doesn't seem to have improved yet. No official developments. We have another government which says that they are the government, the NUG, formed by the people that have been elected during the last elections. And Madame Christine Schraner Burgener is trying to pull all together and find if there is a chance for a solution. She has been on record saying since many weeks already that if the war doesn't find a solution very soon, a civil war can erupt very soon. People say that this is already going on, a civil war. But anyway, let's listen from her what she has to tell us, and then we will start with the question from the floor. Thank you very much. Madame Christine, どうぞ。
どうもありがとうございました。はじめまして、とても嬉しいです。日本に帰りまして、みんな日本の友達はどうぞよろしくお願いします。だけど今は英語を喋ります。すいません。I came to Japan just 2 days ago, and clearly the situation in Myanmar is still very bad. We have a lot of casualties. We count more than 800 people killed since the 1st of February when the coup started. We have also more than 5,300 arrested people. We have also a lot of media people who were arrested. We probably see 100 people missing. Many family members also don't know where the arrested people are. And we have clearly a lot of violence on the street, and clearly people also want to self-defend and try now to use as well violence with handmade weapons, or they already started to be trained by certain ethnic armed organizations. There is a people defense force created by the civilian people, but the situation all over the country is also very bad because it affects the livelihood. They will have urgent need of food, water, shelter, and access to health care. We have heard also of a lot of property damages, and the violence is now spread all over the country. So it's actually very high violence scale in the state of Kaya. but also in the state of Chin. In Mindat, we had a lot of death cases, but today and yesterday also in Kaya. We clearly, when I started my mandate 3 years ago, my task was to bring the military, the Tamado, and the NLD government closer together, that we find solutions for the peace process, where we have 21 ethnic armed organizations. But also my task was to bring the Rohingyas refugee back to Rakhine, and to make the situation, the conditions conducive in Rakhine to allow a safe, voluntarily and sustainable return of the Rohingyas. I think in the last 3 years we could move also forward with my small but I think efficient team in Naypyidaw, where I have my office, and we could create a lot of social cohesion meetings in Rakhine. I had also even very constructive discussions with the army, with Tamado, on several issues like children in armed conflict or sexual violence in armed conflict. But now, with the coup started on the 1st of February, we have a completely different situation. That means I changed my strategy not to continue with my silence diplomacy, which I had for 3 years. And that's also the reason I think we never met each other, because I was also tried a little bit to be quiet also with the media. The reason was, in my experience, when I also tried in other countries to mediate as the Swiss ambassador at that time, then I realized silence diplomacy is the most effective way to change something and to gain trust. But clearly, with the coup and with the huge scale of violence, I had to be very loud and also echo the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, who condemned the coup very highly. So when I observed the situation after the coup started, then I saw there will be probably 4 scenarios in the future, but they are mostly violent, because clearly both sides don't want to give up. And one scenario which I think could go a 5th one is a new idea which I discuss currently, is about having an all-inclusive dialogue, because we want to stop violence. And if we have violence, or talking is always better than violence. That's also the reason I came to the region, because for the moment I cannot go back to Myanmar, because the Tamado said it's not the right moment for me to be in Myanmar. But nevertheless, I was able to talk with the Commander-in-Chief again, alongside the meeting of the ASEAN in Jakarta just 3-4 weeks ago. But I also was in intense contact with the most foreign minister of ASEAN, and I'm still in close connection with the ASEAN leaders, but also with the Secretary General of ASEAN. I spent now the last couple of weeks in Bangkok to be close with many interlocutors who are working on Myanmar. But I also had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Thailand, Prayut Chan-o-cha, And he made also a press statement after the meeting I had with him. And he said that he will give support to my mandate and will cooperate. And he said that he wished to see peace and stability in the interest of the people of Myanmar. And he said also that it's important to assist those affected by the situation, and that he will not push back people fleeing from conflict in Myanmar. So this is also one issue which I'm very much worried, that people have to flee now the country, that they receive a safe space in the neighboring countries, but also elsewhere where people are still in foreign countries, and that they don't have to go back in this situation. So in Japan, I can only stay for a short time due also to the COVID situation. And I would like to thank the Japanese government for receiving me and for the warm hospitality I had and still have. So I met several former special representatives of the UN, so Japanese who worked for the UN in the past, like Mr. Yasushi Akashi. But I also had a meeting yesterday with a group of members of the National Diet. Maybe you are interested to know with whom I had a discussion. It was the president of Japanese Parliamentary Group for World Federation, Mr. Seishiro Eto. Then the Mr. Ichiro Aisawa, the president of the Parliamentary Group for Japan-Myanmar Friendship. Mr. Masaharu Nakagawa, the president of the Parliamentary Group for Democratization in Myanmar. And then also Dr. Sukehiro Hasegawa, former United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General. Then the priest Tomokiyo Tanaka, Secretary General of the Religious Group for World Federation. And Reverend Yoshiharu Tomatsu, Chair of Japanese Association of Religious Organization. We had very interesting discussion because they are very interested in the situation of Myanmar, and clearly also they wanted to hear from me how the situation is in Myanmar. And still two of my staff are actually not this week in Myanmar, but they are normally there. And I have also many friends and stakeholders who inform me on a daily basis how the situation is in Myanmar. And also I'm in almost, I would say, 2 or 3 times weekly discussion with people from the CDM, CRPH, the NUG, so the National Unity Government, but also with the ethnic armed organizations and journalists or NGOs, and also with representatives of the Rohingya community. I will continue to have those contacts to find also proposals and suggestions, advices on all sides to find a way out, to revert the situation to a peaceful environment. And in Japan, clearly, I had also a meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the Director General for Asia. And I'm just coming from a meeting with Foreign Minister Motegi. And we had a very constructive discussion. He's very much interested in Myanmar. And I also clearly presented my idea of having an all-inclusive dialogue. This idea, which is also initiated by the ethnic armed organizations of the National Ceasefire Agreement of 2015, and I had intense discussion with the EAOs from these PPST group. But clearly I also gave some ideas how such a dialogue could work in the future with the participation of international community. So some member states of the UN should be included in such a dialogue as observer, witness, or mediators. I cannot tell you much more about this idea because it's a working in process. That means I'm in consultation with all sides on this, so also with the civil society. And I have carefully listened to them, what they want to see, because a dialogue doesn't mean that we give up or that we legitimize the junta government. So it's try to find solutions, to find a way out of this situation. But I hope that I can give maybe in 2-3 weeks a little bit more information, because I'm in an intense consultation with all stakeholders. Otherwise, I would like to refer to my briefing I gave last Monday at the UN briefing, the noon briefing in New York, which was also registered. And I will give on the 8th of June another briefing to the Security Council in New York. And tomorrow I go back to Switzerland, where it's my home based. But before COVID, I was always only there for changing my luggage. So I was mostly in Myanmar and New York, and in countries where many governments are who are interested in Myanmar, so like the P5 and other countries. After a couple of days in Switzerland, I will also head to New York, probably also for a briefing of the General Assembly, but also to meet bilaterally the representatives of different member states, but hopefully also the OIC on the Rohingya issue, INGOs, and clearly also my boss, Secretary General Guterres. And in the meantime, I hope that I can go back to Myanmar as quickly as possible. This is my high first priority. And maybe with the new idea of a dialogue, maybe it will happen. But I can assure you my full commitment to help the people on the ground. We should listen to the people in Myanmar in need, and that no violence will occur anymore in the future. So this is a little bit in a nutshell from my last weeks in the region, but I'm open for any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before getting to the floor, may I ask you one very general but fundamental question, I think. When you talk about inclusive solution and dialogue, of course, I hope that in your position you mean the junta and the NUG representatives. But do you see any signal from both sides, from the military and from the NUG, that there is actually a chance that they sit together?
Well, that's actually the big question which I'm dealing with, and which I have listened carefully to all sides. And I'm also open for any other advice or proposal which leads to a solution. So I think we just should try to start a new way to find a solution, because all other alternatives I saw or could happen, they are all violent. So it goes either in a direction of stalemate with a humanitarian crisis, or that the Tamado will use even more violence, which creates a lot of casualties. And we don't want to see that the path going in a direction of a military dictatorship, or that we have a real civil war all over the country. So this is for us not an option, and therefore we try to find a new way, but the conditions clearly we have to discuss now.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor now to questions from the people in presence here and then online. If you have a question, please raise your hand and come to the microphone and state your name and affiliation if you have one. Go ahead. Okay, they have to warm up.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay, those.
Thank you very much. My name is Eiko Takeuchi. I'm a freelancer. The people in Myanmar, people of Myanmar, dissidents in Japan, they all claim that Japan's government and the military junta's relationship is very important, because the Japanese government, they provided money and helps to the juntas. So they claim that they should stop, Japanese government should stop any ODAs or the money flowing into the juntas. How do you think? Understand? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, since I started my mandate 3 years ago, I was in regular contact with the Japanese government, especially through the ambassador in Yangon, Maruyama-san, but also with your special envoy, Sasakawa-san. And I was always pleased to have an exchange with such high experts, because they have a lot of knowledge and also very good contact, very good network in Myanmar. And therefore, for me, it was always to learn from them as well how the situation is on the ground. And I appreciated also the Japanese attitude of giving support to the people also in Myanmar, because we should not forget that in the last 5 to 10 years, we have a development in Myanmar, but we had also, thanks to investment and thanks to giving people livelihood activities, that we saw a certain that the prosperity is growing. And on the same time, I know that Japan, or the Japanese representative, had always constructive discussion with the government people, but also with the Tamado, with the army. And I'm sure that they were also frank behind closed doors. So it was a mix between supporting the people, but also silent diplomacy, which I think it's a very good way to go forward to support democracy. Clearly now, when we have the coup, several countries made some actions. They deleted humanitarian support, or they implemented sanctions. But we, from the UN, we always say it's up to the member states what kind of measures you want to implement now in this new situation. And it's also up to the member states in the Security Council if they want to decide global sanctions, which will have to be applied from all member states. So it's up to them. Clearly, we know in Security Council we have member states with different views and different interests, but I had to brief since the coup started 4 times the Security Council, and it was the first time for me since I started 3 years ago that we had 4 statements from the Security Council, which is quite new and shows also that they are united in not liking the current situation and that they also asked for the release of the political prisoners. And I think it's important to continue this unity in the international community to help the people.
Thank you. Any other question from the floor? In the meantime, can I ask you another question? In order to find an agreement at the UN Security Council level, of course, you need China. And at least as an official narration of the beginning after this coup d'etat, China has been perceived and reported like being not only against sanctions, but even a part of this coup d'etat, inspiring somehow. What is your perception in this? I mean, do you think that China is sincerely working with the rest of the world toward a peaceful solution, or that it's going her own way?
Well, China is in the Security Council, and as I said, we had statements where China had also to agree. So they agreed for a statement which said that the violence has to stop and that the political prisoners, especially Do Aung San Suu Kyi and the President Win Myint, has to be released. Clearly, I'm in regular contact with China and will continue to do this also in the view of a dialogue. But this is an ongoing process now where I'm in consultation. So I clearly continue to talk with them.
Thank you. Well, please ask questions. Otherwise, it's going to be a debate between me and the ambassador. I have no problem. I have tens of questions, so I can go on. But please, I have received one from the online, but it's actually something that you have already answered. But just, from Agence France Presse, have you received any indication you will be able to travel to Myanmar and when? Or here comes a new question. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you already said it.
Yeah, I requested to go to Myanmar several times, but it seems that it's not the time for the commander-in-chief. But it doesn't mean that he does not want to talk with me, in my view, because I had a long discussion with him in Jakarta, and I hope that I can continue the discussion with him very soon. And then I will not give up to ask, clearly.
Okay, here comes a more delicate question, ones that I like very much. From Andy Sharp, Nikkei Asia. It has been reported that ASEAN wants the United Nations to drop a call to suspend arms sales to the Myanmar military. In a letter, ASEAN minus Myanmar asked the UN to omit a sentence that calls for an immediate suspension of sales or transfers of all military weapons and munitions to Naypyidaw. Can you confirm this report? And how will the UN respond to such a request? If there is no such letter, what is your stance on Asian efforts on Myanmar?
Well, ASEAN plays a very important role because Myanmar is part of the family of ASEAN, and therefore the meeting in Jakarta I welcomed very much because it showed that they also have a unity on the situation in Myanmar, and they made a consensus of 5 points. Clearly, they have to be implemented now, and the answer from the commander-in-chief afterwards is probably a disappointment, but the ASEAN is still very much committed, and I'm in regular contact with ASEAN, with the foreign ministers of several member states of ASEAN. On the question about weapons, I think it goes in the direction of arms embargo. That's clearly also a question what the member states of the UN want to do. And if they want to have a resolution in the Security Council on this, or a resolution on the General Assembly, which is but clearly not so strong as a Security Council resolution, but it's up to them, and I know that there are ongoing discussions between the member states.
I'm sorry, but I'm sure that if Andy Sharp would be here, he would follow up.
Okay.
So I act as Andy Sharp. Can you confirm this letter?
So it's, you said it's a letter from?
It's a letter from ASEAN minus Myanmar that asks UN to omit the sentence that calls for the immediate suspension. Are you aware?
An omit in the resolution?
In the resolution, omit the phrase an immediate suspension of sales of drugs.
Yeah, but I think he relates to this UN draft resolution, and this is not up to the UN in New York, it's up to the member states of the UN. Okay. So probably the letter went to the GA president.
So you're not aware of this letter?
I heard about this idea, but I'm not involved in the wording of the resolution.
Andy is asking also a second question. Can you clarify your position on silent diplomacy? Which countries specifically, or which international bodies can most effectively stop violence, and how exactly?
So silent diplomacy means that you say everything, and you have to say everything, which are to have be said in a protest way, that which related to violation of human rights and international humanitarian law. But it happens behind closed doors, that the involved people can also save face in the public, because then you can also have a constructive discussion, because it's based on mutual trust. And in my view, this is very effective. Clearly, in my role now as the UN Special Envoy of the Secretary General, I'm representing all member states of the UN, and therefore I have to be also visible and to give you also information what I'm doing. So only silent diplomacy is probably not the way how a Special Envoy of the UN could act and work. But we can also maybe create a group of member states or of experts where can also have this role in the background. I personally, in the last 3 years, I tried to have silent diplomacy, but clearly I also had to regularly inform the Security Council and the General Assembly. So I informed all member states. I'm now, since the coup, a little bit more vocal, because the scale of violence is so high that we cannot be silent now. But if we see the perspectives and alternatives of a way to find way back, where no violence occurs anymore, then clearly we need to talk. And so this will be hopefully coming in the next coming weeks, because time is crucial for the moment. Every day we have violence and injuries and dead people, and we have to help the people as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We have now a couple of questions from Japanese domestic media, one from Asahi and the other from NHK. I sum up them both because basically are very similar. What role do you expect from the Japanese government, and how was the reaction of Minister Motegi today to your position, to your proposals? Do you consider commitment offered by Mr. Motegi enough?
Okay. Yes, as I said, I have a very good relationship with the Japanese government, and we had very constructive discussion today. And clearly he will tell you more what we discussed through his press statement. But I was very pleased of the content of the discussion, and I'm looking forward to have a continued constructive cooperation with the Japanese government, because Japan is outside of the ASEAN, but in the region, and has a long history of cooperation with Myanmar, and knows the situation very well. So I'm looking forward to have a close cooperation with Japan.
Thank you. Now we have another question online from Tom O'Sullivan. How concerned are you about military dictatorships across the region, not just in Myanmar, but Thailand also? And how do you rate the response from Asian group of countries?
Well, my mandate is clearly on Myanmar, but I was clearly also involved in the region about the Rohingya issue, and for that reason I was in contact with many countries. I had, I would say, with all foreign ministers in the region contact, so also with Bangladesh, also with Thailand. As I said, I had even a meeting last week with the Prime Minister, but also with the Commander-in-Chief of Thailand. My mandate on Myanmar includes clearly also democratization, and we in the UN, we don't like to see military dictatorship, and I think this is also not universally related to human rights and international humanitarian law, that we want to have democracies where the people can live without fear, without violence, with freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of movement, and this is clearly already difficult in a situation before the coup, where in a country like Myanmar, where we have 25% of the parliamentarian seats are reserved to the army, and to change the constitution needed more than 75% of the votes. So clearly the power was already in the hands of the army, and that was the reason probably for my mandate to change this, to support this, that the country can move to a full-fledged democracy. So I gave full support also to Aung San Suu Kyi, who really wanted to implement reforms in the country, but she also wanted, or we supported to do it together clearly with the Tamado, because it's a fact that they are in the country. And therefore I had to talk with both sides, and I think we could move on, but at the end it's always a question of who has the power. And clearly, this is in many countries the same question.
Let's see if, as a diplomat, you are able to answer this question without getting yourself in trouble. But let's try to the timeline. There were elections in Burma in last November, and all the perplexity was because the military accused those elections not to be fair. And they staged a coup. Yourself, you use the term coup, which means a political judgment, because for the point of view of the junta, this is not a coup. But for the government, yes. Do you consider NUG, as they pretend to be, the legitimate government of Burma right now because they represent those who has been elected fairly and legally?
Mm-hmm. Well, we said that we respected and accepted the result of the elections of November last year, and we had observers during the election, also international observers, and there were no indications of electoral fraud. When the NLD party won 82% of the seats, then we had clearly, legally elected members of the parliament since November. And they grouped themselves now in an association called CRPH, and they appointed between them ministers to have an interim government. Clearly, the appointment of the ministers are from the Constitution of 2008, which was created by the army, is going through the president and Aung San Suu Kyi. And they cannot appoint the ministers because they are in detention or house arrest. So clearly it's a difficulty, but it's again up to the member states if they have to accept the NUG as a legally appointed government or not. We from the UN, we have contact with the NUG, and I have intense contacts with the NUG. Some of them were already ministers in the last government, so they are already friends in this NUG, and therefore it's also easy for me to continue the discussion with them. But like we have the rules also that there is a committee at the UN who is also dealing with the accreditations of the representatives of a country, and this is also at the end the decision of all the member states in the General Assembly.
Thank you very much. There is another question from the NHK colleague. How exactly can Japan play a role to settle the situation in Myanmar? Do you think that Japan's unique role is still effective?
I think that's a similar question.
Yes.
I already said that I think also every country and who can play a role to find a solution are most welcome to work with me, and I think it shouldn't be the question who is doing what. We should have the common goal to bring peace to Myanmar, and I welcome any support from any country.
I'm not sure if you told us, did you meet physically or another with Mr. Sasakawa too?
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
May I ask you, we know, because we had them here recently, that among those you mentioned before, former diplomats that have been in charge of Myanmar, like Akashi Sensei, and Mr. Sasakawa, there are not necessarily all agreement in procedures and strategies. As the one person that has a relationship with them all, do you think that in Japan strategy, Japan policy right now, is it a straightforward strategy, or there are people thinking differently and going through different routes?
Well, I think they have all a common attitude that they don't like the current situation, and I think all want to support a process which leads to a peaceful environment. So I think that's the most important thing. Otherwise, you have to ask them directly.
Well, we will. We are trying very much to have Mr. Sasakawa here, but until now, he has not yet accepted our invitation. Okay, have you met also in these hours those colleagues of yours, because they are diplomats that have been so-called fired by the junta and that are now seeking asylum in Japan from the Burmese embassy? Myanmar embassy?
Yeah, I didn't meet them because of the COVID restrictions, so I have really should not move too much. And although I'm vaccinated, but clearly I really strictly follow the rules, and I understand those rules very well. But I'm in really regular contact with so many Burmese who were kicked out of the embassies, and we also trying to help them. And clearly, the most prominent one, the PR in New York, Ucho Tinsue, is a good friend of mine. So we have.
And he's still the ambassador, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's representing the Myanmar government. Still in New York, and he was the ambassador in Geneva before he went to New York, and I would really consider him as a good friend of mine, where we have exchanges of views and also discussing how the situation can be changed.
Are you aware that tonight there is a football match between Japan and Myanmar?
I heard about.
And that many Myanmar players are going to declare their contrariement to the government, and some of them have even refused to play. You are aware of this?
Yes, I heard about.
Okay, I think there is somebody you wanted to, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Mintut. I am the president of Burmese Rohingya Association in Japan. It is very nice to meet you here in person. Thank you very much for your efforts for my country. My country is really in a difficult situation right now. As you know, in 2017, the genocide happened on the Rohingya people. And I'm not blaming the United Nations. I just I feel regret on the United Nations has not taken the proper action in 2017 on the same military, and they enjoyed impunity after killing thousands of Rohingya people in Rakhine State. Now they staged another coup, and now the crimes against humanity is going on still. More than 800 people have been killed, including around 60 children. And the situation, as you know, it is very chaotic situation. The people are really suffering, especially ethnic minority people in the minority areas. And
question, please.
Yeah, at the same time, the Rohingya people are also in a very difficult situation. So now the United Nations are raising their strong voice against the coup. And we Rohingya people are feeling, as the United Nations is forgetting the Rohingyas refugee crisis. As you mentioned, you talk a lot of the ASEAN countries on the Rohingya refugee issues. But today, this morning, you met the Prime Minister Motegi. Well, what is the commitment on the the military coup in Myanmar? And did you ask him about the Rohingyas problem at the same time, how we are going to solve these Rohingyas, the 1 million of the Rohingya refugee problem? It is they're suffering too much. Now the monsoon rain is also started. So what is the exact commitment of the Japanese government? Because we are appealing for a long time to the Japanese government to take a strong action on Myanmar military, but they never listen to us. I believe they will listen to the United Nations because they are a very strong member of the United Nations country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The question is very clear. Did you took up this issue with Motegi?
Well, the Rohingya issue is still very important for us in the UN, and this is also what I regret very much. Because of the coup, the situation for the Rohingyas is even more difficult than before. In the last 3 years, I visited almost every second time when I visited Myanmar, and that was 6 to 7 times per year. I visited Rakhine, and I didn't give up to be in contact with the Rohingyas. So just last week I had a virtual meeting also with Rohingya representatives, and the accountability is still very much important. The IM mechanism in Geneva under the former prosecutor Kumchan is also collecting now evidence since the coup. And I also supported his work that I made some tweets to inform the people on the ground that they can send new evidences to Geneva, that we have them saved for the future, that accountability can work also in the future. The Rohingyas, clearly the return for us must always have to be under the condition that the Rohingyas want to go back, so voluntarily, that nobody forced them to go back under very difficult conditions. So it must be sustainable and also secure, so that the return is safe enough. And I promoted always that the people should go back to the place of origin. And clearly the last year, or the last 2 years, we had, and that was for me fascinating to see that in the international community it was not so well known, in my view, that we had a civil war in Rakhine the last 2 years, because there were daily combats between the Arakan army, which is a rebel group of a Buddhist background who wants to have an Arakan state, against the Tamado, the army. And that was also difficult for the safety to bring the people back. But now we have, with the coup, the perpetrators of what you said from 2017, they have now the full power, and so therefore I think we should even more listen to the Rohingyas if you really want to go back under those conditions. And that's the reason I think we have to revert the situation, that you can have a government in place which would welcome you to come back, and that the Kofi Annan's recommendations, the 88 recommendations, will be implemented under a democratic elected government. And clearly I regret also that the last year with the COVID pandemic, also it makes our work more difficult because in the past I could convince Aung San Suu Kyi that one of my staff is going regularly to Rakhine to talk with the people, but with the Rohingya, but also with other communities, Buddhist, Hindu, and to find out what we can change on the ground, and that we can give concrete recommendations. And though Aung San Suu Kyi was agreed that one of my staff members, she's sitting here, that's Michiko Ito, and Ito-san could go regularly to Rakhine, and we gave regularly recommendations how to change the situation for your Rohingya brothers and sisters. And I was really also happy to have social cohesion workshops where I felt that people coming closer together, and maybe also with the Arakan army has such an effect, because I'm also in contact with them, and they told me that they would give you also support and would welcome them back. But they also said that for the moment it's very difficult for you to go back. My intention is also after New York, on the way back to the region, I would like to visit Bangladesh again, also to assure to the Bangladesh government my full support on the Rohingya issue, and to discuss the way forward. But please assured that you are very on the high, on the top of our priority list, and I really appreciate the exchange with the Rohingya communities. But if not, you can also ask afterwards Ito-san, who knows the situation in Rakhine very well.
Thank you. I think we are about to time, but there is a last question from the online by Ryan Hartley of Chuo University. How concerned are you of Myanmar actually descending into civil war?
Yes, I think if we don't do more and help the people, then people are frustrated, angry, and also devastated to and now to try to make to use self-defense, and clearly the country situation is getting worse. As I said, the health services are almost not existent, and also in a pandemic time of COVID, there are no prevention measures. Then we have also a banking system which collapsed. People cannot get money from the bank or the ATM machines, and people will soon suffer also from hunger. And clearly, if they only see a way out through violence, and if the ethnic armed organizations continue to give them support, which is also clearly good because they show unity, but if they give support in a violent way, then it goes in a direction of a civil war. And that's the reason the momentum now is so important, that we don't lose time to find a way out of this situation. And that's also clearly this is my role also to warn. And I did this also the last 3 years, that I warned regularly that a coup can happen. Because if you talk to both sides for so many times, then you feel that the tension and that where are the problems, that the NLD government tried to make democratization happen. But if you can only from 168 items which the NLD government under Aung San Suu Kyi wanted to change the constitution, and they could only change in the last 5 years 4 items, because you have this rule of 75% and more to change the constitution. Then clearly I felt this risk of a coup d'etat if one side is pressuring more, or if the pressure is coming also from outside. That's the reason I always tried to be the bridge between the two sides, and also to give the clear picture to the Security Council.
Thank you very much. Just last question, very human question. You know both of them. You've met recently with the general, and you met with Aung San Suu Kyi many times. Don't you think that there is also a problem of personalities here between the general and the lady? And do you foresee as a solution, a possible solution, a solution that does not see both the general and Aung San Suu Kyi in the next power in Myanmar?
Yeah, clearly I think if two wants, so I would say if
surrender.
Yeah, and if both want the power, because the one says they were legally elected and the other one wants to gain power or to stabilize his power through a coup, then it's difficult. But I think we should really talk to everybody, because we cannot put outside or neglect the people who were in the lead as well before the coup happened. And I said always the coup started or the coup happened, but in my view it is not finished. So the situation is not stabilized as long as the people are on the street and fighting for their rights and having this civil disobedience, that they don't go back to work and don't reopen many things on the ground. Then the coup is not successfully ended, and then there is not a stabilized military dictatorship. And that's the reason the moment now is very important to talk all sides, and talking is, as I said, always better than violence.
Just came in the last from the online. To set the table for talks between military and NUG, they need to have equal status, but as you know, NUG has not yet been recognized by countries. If a member country of UN Security Council recognizes NUG, do you think that other countries will also follow? You partially have answered this before, but... Yeah,
it's up to the member states.
Yes.
And clearly, I think one key element in this question is, if we approach the Tamado with the argument that for us they are not the legally appointed government because they are not appointed by Win Myint, the president, and Aung San Suu Kyi, then clearly this applies for everyone. And that's the reason it's difficult to have this argument also in or against one or other. And therefore I think member states will carefully make decisions on this. But I would encourage the member states to support the people and talk to the NUG, because they need our support as well.
Okay, thank you very much. It's time to wrap up here. Thank you for today, for your presence, and this is a token of our gratitude for having him here. It's it's back anyway. You can put all your diplomatic secrets inside.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.